Rani Rao Innes is a Master NLP Practitioner. She is the managing partner of Link Communicate and has been a corporate trainer and life coach for many years. She lives between Bangalore, India and the United Kingdom and joins Miriam O'Gara on Business Block Thursday. Well, hello everyone, and you are very welcome again to Business Block. Now, as most of you know, Business Block runs on a Monday. My Thursday edition is for local, national and international business. And that is where the guest that I have today is very special. Her name is Rani Innes, and she is a Master NLP Practitioner, corporate trainer and life coach. Rani, you're very welcome to the show today from India.
Thank you for having me, Miriam.
From India, isn't that wonderful? So for the benefit of everybody, I know Rani. I worked with Rani for about 6 years in England, and I know you 19 years altogether. My gosh, more. I'm sure more. For the benefit of people who are watching, give us a little bit of a breakdown on your background, where you come from, where you studied.
Okay, I did my master's in a city called Mysore in India, and that was in English literature. And then I was one of the two who were awarded the British Council Scholarship, and I went to University of Exeter, and that was my first introduction to any country outside India. So I went there as a student. I met my husband there, as it happens, and we started our married life in Japan. I was one of the senior teachers of Waseda University, and we were there for 17 years. My children grew up in Tokyo. They had an interesting life with an Indian mom and English dad, and grew up in Japan. They still, I think, consider Japan their home and Japanese their first language.
Really? Would they regard Japanese as their first language?
Well, not anymore now. No, I tell a lie. Now it's English. But they're growing up until middle school was in Japan, and there, all their neighbors, their friends, their classmates, they all spoke Japanese, and the children very quickly blended, and even at home, they would speak Japanese. So English was their functional language, but Japan was their emotional language. Like English is my functional language, but my Indian language is my mother tongue is my emotional language. So for Mira and Alex, Japanese was their emotional language. But after they came to England as, to do their A-levels, for the first couple of years, they kept speaking Japanese at home as well. They would call me Okaya-san. And, it was endearments for all in Japanese. Telling them off was in Japanese, all the emotional bits.
And how did you feel as a mother? How did you feel? Because you wouldn't have been reared with that scenario, or were you? Did you have a multilingual household yourself?
Although it was all Indian languages, yes, I did. I'm an army brat. My dad was in the army, and we moved along with dad. And India, there are many countries, several countries in one country in India, and every state has its own language. So in some schools, my medium of instruction would be Hindi. And my mother tongue is not even Hindi. So we ended up speaking English, which was our medium of education, Kannada, which is my father's language, Tamil, which is my mother's language, Hindi became my second language. So we grew up with many languages. So learning learning any language is a challenge, but not as great as it seemed to be for my husband, who spoke English in English. It was like learning. It was like learning another language, another Indian language for me. And there's so many similarities in expressions and structure between Indian language and Japanese that after some time it didn't sound or seem very foreign to me. Yes. And even today, after having left Japan so many years ago, I'm still very comfortable. I'm not that I speak it very well, but I speak it fluently, and I'm very comfortable.
Isn't that fantastic? To a certain extent, I think a lot of Irish people would understand what you're talking about, because we still have the debate today. Is Irish my native language or my mother tongue? Is English my native language or my mother tongue? Because it runs very, very close.
Scenario.
It's a real one. So your love, I am familiar because I worked with you in the United Kingdom. I know you, but I'm having to play devil's advocate here, as you know, because people
Sure.
watching won't know you. But linguistics, language, it's there. It's at the center of so much of your work. Today, what I was going to have a chat with you about was your NLP experience, because when I worked with you, when I knew you, that wasn't in the picture. However, I know as an ex-teacher that aspects of NLP are in our teaching, they are in the classroom, they're in so much of our experience. Tell me how you came into contact with NLP and what was the context for that?
Yeah, this is a slightly personal bit. I don't usually talk about it, but in context, I'll tell you. After I got married, sole objective or goal in life seemed to be at that time to make a good home for my mom because she had had a really difficult life. And I had determined that when I got married, I'll keep her with me and, look after her. And so it took a couple of years in Japan for us to settle down and come to India to take her back with me. And I came back to take her. I had a little baby in arms, and I had Alex in my tummy then. That morning she got the visa, and that night she had a stroke and she died. And she died in my arms. And that traumatized me.
Yes.
For nearly, you won't believe it, for nearly 20 years, I lived with that trauma. And every now and I not all the time, but sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night, gasping for breath and not able to breathe, and kind of recreating what my mom went through. I think it was a kind of, if I can rationalize it or analyze it, kind of guilt that I wanted to give her the world, and the only thing she wanted was air, and I couldn't give that to her. And so that kind of made me somehow, not consciously, but go through what she was going through, and I would choke and I wouldn't breathe. And this was getting silly, and I thought, I need to see a shrink. I need to see somebody to help me. I need help. And then somebody said, why not NLP? And I've never heard of NLP, and it actually sounded very strange to me. I said, what's this NLP? And then I thought, well, let me understand a bit more. And when I understood a bit more about what it was, I thought I was very interested. I was very intrigued. And then I did my first diploma with they're called Field Husband and Wife. This is in Cotswolds, and it was for 8 days. It was residential. And Miriam, I tell you, that changed my life. That
Really?
1 week changed my life. The first thing was it enabled me to let my past go, to just let it go. And I came back, and my children teased me after that, and they were saying, Mom, you're so different, you're so relaxed. And Tony also teased me after some time. He said, you're easier to live with. And although he joked, probably it was not a complete joke. And I could see that. I could see the change in myself. And I thought, if this is what it does to me, I would like more of it. And I would like to do, work with others as well. Because by then I had already, as you know, been working as a student counselor and with the British Council. I was also a senior trainer, corporate trainer, as well as a teacher trainer. And I started using it in everything I did, whether it was counseling or teacher training. So that's how it started. And then I wanted to do more. Then I did my practitioners with Richard Bandler. He's one of the two co-creators of NLP. Yeah, this was in London. And I thought, if I'm doing it, I'd like to do it with him.
It was John Grinder and Richard Bandler who began it. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's the co-founder. And it was
in California.
I can't put in a few words here how amazing he is. And it was really awesome that the practitioner's training. I must say that the diploma gave me a lot because we were just 12, whereas with Richard Bandler, we were like 200. But even then, they had a lot of, expert master trainers who were, all working with us. And there was John and Kathleen Laval as well. And they are also master trainers, very internationally known trainers. So we had some very, very good trainers. I did that. Then after a couple of years, I did my master practitioner's course. And for the last some time, I've been training with Sue Knight, and again, probably one of the trainers to train with. If I have to recommend any trainer, I would certainly say Sue Knight, and also her book. In fact, I've got a book here, NLP at Work. It's like a textbook for me as well. So I continue. This is a 12-year journey now. It was 12 years ago that I first started my journey with, doing my diploma. And I'm still very much a learner. I realize now, training in the last year as I've been doing, that it's a constant process of relearning and applying. And I have to practicing and doing that until it becomes second nature.
And now, as we've been through this awful experience, this pandemic, which continues, and hopefully we're easing our way out of it. Who knows? But let's hope some parts of the world are. You will notice, I suppose, people gravitating towards anything that will help them emotionally, mentally, help them with their work now. And as we were mentioning just in the preamble before the show, there are people who are in incredibly difficult circumstances. Some people have been trapped in their homes with partners that, are very difficult to live with, or perhaps there's illness. It's
children,
and children, yes.
Different life for children who are used to going out and about schools and playgrounds and, meeting friends. And for kids, at least we adults have an understanding of why and what's happening. For little kids, and parents who are now stuck with kids at homeschooling. I mean,
absolutely. And students as well, as we will both understand, having to rely on online classes. Some teachers handled this very well from the get-go, and some schools put measures in place and handled it, trained their people up very well. Others didn't. And there are students who've come a cropper because of that too. So it's an immensely difficult time that everybody has gone through at so many levels.
And we must also remember, sorry, I'm interrupting, that a lot of the teachers who, have learned new skills, and the schools I work with, the teachers have done so much training, and they're doing so extremely well with their online teaching. We mustn't forget that their parents themselves too, and they've got their kids at home while they're teaching other kids. So, we forget that they have got their kids at home, and then they're teaching other kids. So they're being parents and teachers. And this is for all professions. Yeah.
It's become a 24-hour day for most people, and can be very stressful. And we're all working out blueprints, aren't we? And a lot of that blueprint, as I suppose we tend to use that word more often, within NLP, you talk about mapping. You talk about modeling, observing patterns. And it seems as though a lot of people are drawn to that language right now. And so much of this is all about language, isn't it? But just looking at how mapping out can help you. What advice would you give to people today who are under this kind of pressure, no matter how many different layers are there, it's all pressure? How can NLP help them?
Very quickly, advise. I mean, I don't advise people at all. I don't even advise my children, because I never know if it's the right advice for them. But yes, I'm not a spokesperson for NLP at all. I don't need to sell it, and I wouldn't try at all, because I know from experience it works, and I have seen evidence all around me, and NLP is about whatever works. So, we don't need any evidence, any proof other than the difference it's been making in millions of people's lives, and that speaks for itself. But there is a misconception. People think NLP is about, tools and techniques and strategies. Yes, it is all that, absolutely. But that's not what NLP is about, and that's not why it was founded in the first place. NLP basically is about modeling. And NLP is modeling excellence. And we believe that if we study people who are excellent at what they do, and we study the essence of their excellence, that we are able to code that, and then we are able to reproduce it, albeit in a different context. And that we can also reproduce the excellence. And I will only speak from experience. I'll give my own example. I had never worked with small children. It was always in university or adults. With British Council, it was adults or even teachers. So children and students through teachers, because it cascades down to children. So the objective was children, but I was working with adults. And then when I came to live in India, I saw a lot of children who don't go to schools for various reasons. They can't, and they're dropouts, or to put it bluntly, some slum children as well. I don't want to sound insensitive here, but that's the truth. And I felt as a teacher that every child deserves education. And of course, in India, we do have free education for children, but for various reasons, the parents are not able to send the children to the school, whatever their own family and personal reasons are. So I wanted to, somehow offer a little something for these children, because as a teacher, that's what you do, you teach. And so I started just working with a few children on the footpath, because we didn't have a room or anything, literally footpath in front of us. And then there were only 2 children to start with, and that became 10, 20. And then it grew and grew. And then I realized that I've got a stone bench to sit on, but the kids are sitting on the dusty ground with dogs and motorbikes and all that. And I felt I've got to find a little room for them, what I can afford. And we did. It's all serendipity. Just then a room right outside our gate became vacant, and I immediately grabbed it. But then now I've got more than 55 children, and I've never worked with children. And I've worked with lots of schools, though. And one of my dearest friends is the director of one of these schools that offer really quality education. And for more than a few years, I had been observing her without making it a formal modeling. I had been observing her, but then I made it a little more formal and a little more specific. And I thought, okay, I'm going to model this lady. And I started seeing how, because she is so good at connecting. All I wanted to know was, how do you connect with little children? How do you establish rapport? How do you bond with little ones so that they come to you willingly and they want to come and study? And that's what happens with this lady. And then I used to watch her, I used to observe her. The thing is, people who do something excellently, they don't know how they do it. It's so much of his unconscious.
Yes.
And if I ask her, she will say, really, do I do that? I didn't know that, but that's what she does. So there's no point in interviewing them or asking them questions. You have to literally observe them. And so I did that. I did this for a couple of years. I used to follow her whenever I went to school, watch her, observe her, make some notes. I did ask her a few questions because I also wanted to know her beliefs, her values, because if that didn't align with mine, there was no point. And maybe that's why she's like my soul sister, because our values and beliefs are so aligned. And then I started watching how she does what she does. And I've got this little school now, although it's been closed for some time because of the pandemic. I have got videos of how when my husband and I approach the school, how the kids come running and throw their arms around us, and how they study, how they even want to come on Sundays when I tell them it's a holiday, and they want to come 7 days a week. So I feel that I learned a lot from modeling the excellence of this lady who is outstanding in what she does. So this is what NLP is. It's about seeing what is this difference that makes the difference. And that is what we study. But yes, there are also tools, there are techniques, there are strategies, and I'll raise my hand. I use a lot of them, particularly the last couple of years. I've been using a lot of that. But
you still have to keep your own originality too.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you're doing it in a different context. So it can't be the same. You have to apply it. Modeling is context specific. So I'm doing it because her school, the students are middle class to upper middle class family kids.
Yes.
And mine, some of them live in shacks. So, they're very, very different kind of background and different lives and different beliefs, behavior for the kids. So, yes, yeah.
And I mean, footpath is so wonderful. If you don't mind, I'll put up a couple of photographs just to show what you're talking about, because they're just the most gorgeous kids. Absolutely the most beautiful kids. And I'm sure you miss them so much.
Yeah.
Just moving towards the corporate side of NLP now. Can you give me your views on this? Because I have noticed over the years here that there are a lot of people who are using it more for marketing, looking at how to improve their language, looking at target language. I sometimes become a little bit concerned that some of the people using it haven't enough of a grounding in its background, and it's become a product, you know, which is very sad. What's your view on that? Because I know you work in that area too.
I think NLP sometimes gets a bad press for understandable reasons. One is what you mentioned. People use it as a tool to sell their product. Because you become very skilled at communication and at persuasion, you can use it to manipulate people. But remember when we were talking earlier, I also mentioned that, a knife can be used by a surgeon or by a killer. So it's not so much the tool, it's about the person using it. For us, NLP, for us, it means integrity. It means honesty. It means values. It means wanting to make a difference in other people's lives. And without that integrity, without that belief, we have got so many beliefs and presuppositions in NLP. Without that, you're just using it as a tool, and probably just for, and also in business, we talk about negotiation, and negotiation doesn't mean one wins and one loses. With NLP, it's that both sides have to leave the table thinking both of them have gained something. It is really about having the integrity and the sincerity in whatever you do and whatever you offer, and you must have the welfare of your client in mind, because you're not doing this to manipulate them and gain something for. And anyway, if you do that, it's not sustainable, I don't think.
No.
Any outcome, it has got to be positive, and it's got to be good for both sides, and it's got to have value. So it's got to have a purpose, a higher purpose, as we call it. So I would ask these people, what is your higher purpose? And if they don't have one, then they're just using it as a tool to manipulate people, and that is not NLP.
And the pitfalls that can go with that. I mean, you could ruin your own reputation if you're doing it solely that way and you're not on a personal journey. I mean, I would just have to say to people that I'm actually not involved in NLP. And one of the reasons why I have invited my friend Rani on is because I know that she's been on this journey since we last used to work together. And I'm interested because I remember years ago, back in the 70s now, Gestalt. I don't know if you remember. There was a connection there between NLP and Gestalt therapy, and the psychiatrists in the early 70s, particularly around 1973, becoming more experimental and using different approaches and techniques. And I know that Richard Bandler was involved in that to some extent. And I was wondering, where did I know his name from? And my mom at the time was really looking into Gestalt when she was in her early 30s, because she was a clinician herself. She was an artist, but she had studied in the United Kingdom. And that's where that name came up, because this gentleman, Richard Bandler, he's a good age now, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. And he also, he worked
or more.
Yeah, he's and still performing. But there would have been, for example, I remember Richard Chamberlain, the actor, when I interviewed him on Writer's Block, and it was on his memoir, he talked a lot about Gestalt, and he talked a lot about Robert Spitzer. And these are all people that Bandler was working with. So that you had this very exciting time in the early 70s, and particularly in California, particularly in the States. And a lot of actors, of course, would have become involved. Now, you yourself, you direct on stage. You're a producer as well. And I've seen you put on the most wonderful, wonderful productions in England, in proper professional theatres as well, and university theatres. And it is something that actors gravitate towards quite well, the idea of modeling and mimicking. It certainly seems to be more attractive to certain types of people, perhaps the more arty type of person.
Yeah.
just getting it into mainstream is still a little bit of an effort, though, isn't it, Ron?
Yeah. I would say that you will find today NLP in every field, sports, particularly where you
Yes.
want excellence.
Performance.
Because when you have even the most the most outstanding sports person, it's a teamwork. It's not him individually. He'll have a whole group of coaches, and it's not just coaches who train them in their physical performance, but also in the mental performance, because that is what gives them the edge over others. So a lot of them will have trainers and maybe NLP trainers as well. So you have that in sports, you have that in education, you have that in business, you have that in medical side, you have got that in legal firms. I work with law firms. Some of them are my clients. So I use this in all these companies, also in businesses. And I think it's also very important for individuals. I have, gone through probably one of the most difficult phases in my life in the last 2 months, as you're aware. And honestly, Miriam, I'm not exaggerating. I don't want to be dramatic, but the truth is, if I didn't have my NLP training, because for me, NLP is not about tools or techniques. NLP is an attitude. NLP is who you are. It's what you do. It's what you
Yes.
become. And if I didn't have that training, I don't even know if I would have survived the last 2 months, because for my husband particularly, it was touch and go. And I don't mind saying, if people are wondering what the hell is she talking about, both my husband and I had COVID, and it was pretty serious because we are the age that we are. And my husband is a stroke victim, so he had a lot of comorbidities. And after that, he ended up with pneumonia. And because he's a foreigner and in India, and he has a language problem, and he had lost his power of speech, he has got no movement, I refused to send him to a hospital because I thought, if I could go with him, yes. Or if you could stand up and walk, yes. If you could even speak and express what he wants to say, yes. Without any of these, I thought, I'm not. And those were the days, if those of you who have been following the news, hospitals were struggling for beds and they were short-staffed, and doctors and nurses were really, really overstretched. And medical supplies were overstretched. So I just felt that I'm going to treat him at home against the advice of the GP and the specialists who said he should be hospitalized. So I won't say that I had the confidence. People say I was very brave. All I felt was fear and doubts, but I knew for certain I'm not sending him alone to the hospital. So I turned his room into an ICU room, a hospital ICU room. We were fortunate to get the oxygen we wanted and to get all the ICU stuff that we needed. And I was sick with COVID myself, and I had to treat my husband and look after him. And we were isolated. Nobody could come inside. It wasn't easy. And physically, when you're sick yourself, and mentally and emotionally with all the fears, it wasn't easy. And it is what we have been taught in NLP. And just for those who are familiar with these terminology, forgive me if some of you aren't, we do something called second positioning. If you have the time, I can just give a quick example.
Yes, please.
It was second positioning. It was reframing. Okay, second positioning is when you literally, when you put yourself in the shoes of the other person and you try and see from that other person's point of view. It's empathy in a way, but there's a way we are trained to do it. And then you, of course, you can never really be in someone else's shoes and know what they're thinking or feeling, but to some extent you can. So I kept doing that and putting myself in my husband's shoes, and I thought what he must be going through and what he must be feeling, what it must be like him. And when I did that, I found my own position bearable. I could do it. And that second positioning helped me a lot. And the other one, we call it reframing. If you have a picture has a certain visual, a certain appearance, but if you change the frame, it looks different. And so we call it reframing. So whatever my situation is, I reframe it. And again, as a very, very quick example, stop me, Miriam, if you should. One day it was pouring with rain, and usually I'm quite a positive person, and I live in hope always. I always believe things will turn out right in the end, however difficult. But that night is one of those days when I was feeling sorry for myself, and I had a bit of a weep, and I was sitting in my bed thinking, it's tough. And it was pouring outside, it was raining. And then I thought of my little footpath Pachala children. They live in these plastic shacks, and they've got no generators when the lights go out for a light to come. So they would be in the dark, and it would be pouring, the rain would have gone in, and they would all be wet and shivering. And I saw myself sitting in my comfortable bed with the rain outside the window, cozy and safe. And suddenly I thought, what am I complaining about? Now, in a way, I'm just giving a simple example. I could have given so many other examples, but this just sprang to mind because I remember that night clearly. I just reframed my situation, and something that seemed almost pathetic, where I was feeling sorry for myself. So that morning I woke up feeling a bit sorry for myself, and, a toxic state of mind to be in. I went to bed that night saying, thank you. I just had a heart filled with gratitude for my life. So this is how, we can reframe and change. And of course, the other one is anchoring, which many of you know. If you have read, Daffodils, William Wordsworth. That's a classic example of anchoring. You have some visual, some memory, or some object, or some smell, or something, and you associate that with a good time and a good feeling, like he did with the daffodils dancing in the breeze. And I have got one or two things like that. One is a little thing given to me by the footpath children. Whenever I hold that, I feel, hope and faith and everything that I want to feel. And other is the smell of jasmine. If I smell jasmine, immediately takes me to a different state of mind. So this is anchoring. I do that. And the different maps of reality. I just realized that all of us have different maps, and every perception is true for them. And I try to accept without judging other person's thinking or perception or opinion, because it's true for them. And that's how I can probably, even if we have different ideas, different opinions, different thoughts, I can accept the differences and think there's no right or wrong. And of course, the last belief for me, very, very important, is this: no failure, but feedback. So every time I stumble and fall, and God knows I've done that so often recently, it's not about falling, but it's about picking myself up and going on. As long as I do that, I don't fail. And as we say, you either win or you learn. So there is no failure. And that keeps me going, that if something doesn't work out one way, then we try and do it another way. And we keep trying. Flexibility is, again, at the core of NLP. The more choices we give ourselves, the more flexible we are, the greater our influence, the greater our power. So all these are the different, states of mind that we can create for ourselves through all the training.
That is just so wonderful to hear, because that paints for me a very different picture of NLP to, I think, the one that people will research online, which can be very functional in the way it's put across. A lot of the information out there, it comes across as tools, as you say, rather than an attitude. And certainly listening to you there, I'm also hearing Buddhism. I'm hearing the best parts of Judaism and Christianity. I'm hearing all the good coming across there. Is NLP really at its base, is it more about accessing those attributes more easily?
NLP is about creating states of mind. We all have states of mind. Some are unresourceful and some are resourceful.
Yes.
Recognizing what states of mind are unresourceful and letting them go. It's not easy. I mean, I make it sound easy. It's not. It requires constant practice. And I said, God knows, I fall flat on my face so many times, as we all do. And then accessing the resourceful state of mind. For this, you can do with anchoring. As I was telling you, you can access any state of mind you want through anchoring. And, we train people in doing that. Particularly, you mentioned spirituality, and definitely there is, for me, as an Indian growing up in India with, not I'm not religious per se, but Hinduism, Buddhism, it's a mix of all that. And I have recognized so much of this in NLP. So when you say that people use it to manipulate or to sell a product or, influence people, they're not NLPers. They've just learned some tools and they're using that to good effect. But that is not NLP at all. And you don't have to be a film star. You don't have to be a successful person. You can be a student. You can be a housewife. You can be anybody. NLP is for every. And Miriam, if I can say particularly, I think NLP is very, very relevant because look around us. There is so much unpredictability. Yes. There is so much chaos, so many challenges. We have no control over what is happening around us. And we can't control what is happening around us. We can't control other people. The only control we have is what's going on within. And whatever the uncertainty outside, what we have to do is go within and find that certainty.
Yeah, I know. Even, any people who are particularly religious and Christian, there will be saying to themselves, and I'm going to put myself on the spot here and say that I know what you're thinking, folks. The kingdom of God is within you. It's a piece of scripture, and that is what I have noticed about people like Sue Knight. When I was reading about her there last night, one of the first things on her website that she was highlighting was that, everything you need for success is within you.
Yeah. And maybe sometimes people ask me, what's the difference between psychiatrists and an NLP coach? I haven't done psychiatry. I can't speak as an expert, but just as the understanding I have, in certain fields, we ask why. When counselees come to us for counseling, we go through why, what happened. For example, when you were 4-year-old, what did your dad do to you, or your mom, or your friend, or neighbor? We go back to why. And in NLP, we don't do that. We do like to hear what has happened in their lives in the past to get a context, so we have a better understanding. But we don't focus on that, because if somebody is suffering from some trauma or something, the more you go ask them to talk about what happened and why, the more they kind of get anchored in that victim state. And our job is to get them out of that victim state. Nobody is a victim. Nobody is a victim unless you choose to be. So we, number one, don't believe we are therapists who have to treat somebody, because we don't think anything is broken. And we believe everybody is whole and perfect as they are. And, they have, as you said, all the resources within them already. Maybe because of self-limiting beliefs, because of mental imprints, because of the influences, maybe even in their childhood as they're growing up, maybe there are a lot of blockages. And very often I tell the teachers in my teacher training, or I tell the parents in my positive parenting workshops, that our job as a teacher or a trainer is just one. Not simple, not easy, but it's just one. And that is to help enable, empower our children or anyone to uncover and discover the magic that is there already. It's there in them. We are not putting it in them. We don't have the power to do that. Nobody does. It's there already. And we're just helping them discover that. And so, yes, you're right. We have all the resources in us, and NLP helps us discover those.
Yeah, it helps. Them. What I'm noticing from the people like yourself who really are they're not selling a product. They are living a life. It's bringing things that are already in existence within themselves, systems, influences, into harmony. That seems to be something that is of the true NLP follower and practitioner. That seems to be at the heart of it. It's finding harmony. Which are very universal truths, but actually finding ways to map it out for yourself and have that it works, and realize that you have to give yourself that time and effort to do that. It's investing in
what a beautiful word that was you used, Miriam, harmony.
Well, it kind it seems to, that's what I'm looking for these days.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it is
Oh,
finding
yes.
harmony in this difficult time.
So many of us. Yeah.
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 Getting your energy, with it, being able to harness your energy. And you know I'm at a time of life too where energy can suddenly deplete like that, you know. And so learning how to, self-care is the buzzword, as you know, at the moment. Self-care. And I, in one way, I hate buzzwords, but the truth is we do have to engage in this. And maybe that is why NLP is showing up on people's radar at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And self-care is very important. My children keep reminding me about that. Yeah.
Can I just take you, Rani, just for a moment? I just want to go to your website.
Sure.
And this is Rani's website here. It's called Link Communicate. And if you want to find her on social media, most of the time you'll find it with a hyphen between the link and the word communicate. So it's a beautiful website that you have here, Rani. It really is gorgeous.
Thank you. I did make it.
Personal development. So you've got your programs up there. Any particular tab that you would like me to go to? Do you want to take us through the site there?
I don't know.
Go to services for a moment. You have your positive parenting.
Yeah.
That's been very successul in India as well.
Oh,
hasn't
yes.
it?
Yeah. I learn as I teach because this is something I needed very much.
So you have positive parenting, which these are workshops that aren't currently being offered online, or are they, Rani?
The business writing is, funnily enough, the public speaking is, and I really wondered how that would work because body language is so important, and it seems to be working quite well because, again, with public speaking, it's what's happening within the speaker that's as important as outside.
Absolutely. Excellent. So you have here also effective business writing skills, professional email and report writing skills, successful presentation skills. So you go through all of these skills that are very important, particularly for people who are already in business, but also if you're talking about foreign nationals.
And that is what I mainly did as a British Council trainer. I was a corporate trainer, and those were all the workshops I did. And I had to resign from the council after Tony had his stroke. So I continue doing that on my own now.
And you have a very extensive team. So, I mean, you are the managing partner here, but there's Tony there, wonderful Tony. Tony was very much involved in this prior to his stroke.
Very
and I'm
much
sure,
so.
Yeah, I'm sure that he is still advising. And yourself, of course, but also we have fellow Irish lady.
Yes.
Your very good friend, Geraldine Moores.
Famously,
She's a very good friend of yours.
Yeah.
Seema Ban. All of
Seema
these.
is also an NLPer. She also is a practitioner.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your gorgeous daughter, Mira.
Yeah.
Who shares the same nickname that I used to have growing up. I was either called Mir or Miri, one or the other.
Okay.
And I love
Mira
her hair.
Is very much a writer now. And Alex is a trainer like me.
Yes, she is. Wonderful trainer. And I mean, really, it's amazing how the years fly. I remember her when she was 17, 18, that age group. And then, of course, Alex, your son, Alex, who is also business communications trainer.
And he works as a trainer in France. Yeah.
In France, yes. And he has a family now. And you have, are any of your team here? Kalpana
Yes,
Mohan.
Kalpana is very much here. She's a principal of her school. Yeah.
And so all of these people working with you, are they all located in different parts of the world?
No, Kalpana, all the three now are in Bangalore.
They're all in Bangalore, where you are.
Jerry is in the UK. Mira is in Germany. Alex is in France. Seema is in Bangalore. Seema, Kalpana, Murli, and Nimi, they're all in Bangalore. Tony and I are in Bangalore too.
And the The companies that you are working with, would that be globally or mainly in India at this current time?
No, most of them are multinational.
They're all multinational.
Okay. Most of them, yeah.
Most of them. I'm not sure if I can bring up your testimonials there. They may or may not come up, but it's like, it's so, yeah, the United Arab Emirates, British Council, United Arab Emirates, there, various different, Morocco. I remember when you went to Morocco. I do remember that.
Yeah, I went there 5 times actually.
5 times, gosh, up to around 2013, wasn't that right?
Yeah.
And then you have so many different, so you're just so, gosh, Rani, I mean, I know, I don't have to sell you, because I know just listening to you, people will be absolutely amazed at what you know, and your approach. You say that this is what's important. You're not an aggressive person. You don't sell aggressively. You simply live the experience, and you bring your entire experience to your story. And that is very important today. And you know, from that perspective, you've taught me an awful lot about NLP today. As I've heard good things, I've heard bad things, I've heard more good than anything else. But I wonder, is there a possibility that within certain circles there is an active movement maybe against NLP?
I wouldn't be surprised. You know, I pay no attention at all. I've heard, sometimes I hear, but I really pay no attention.
Yeah,
for me, all that matters is that how does it improve my life, my relationships, my state of mind, and how can I make a difference, a positive difference in the lives of other people? And using NLP, I know, I mean, I don't, maybe I'll sound conceited, but that's not my intention. I know for a fact, I believe, if I didn't have that faith, I wouldn't be doing it, Miri. I know that we do make a difference in other people's lives. And there's nothing more awesome than that. And for me, you know, if I have to say a final word about what it means to me, for me, the word I would use, you used harmony. That's a wonderful word. Oh, I wish all of us could have that. For me, the word I would choose is alignment. And this is something I'm only realizing now. What I mean, but what we mean in NLP by that is, you know, what I do, where I do, how I do what I do, that needs to be aligned with my beliefs and my values. And the final question I would ask is, what is my higher purpose? And therefore, some of the work I used to do, I am not doing that now. And there is a lot more I will cut back, because I realized I was doing it for certain reasons. Professionally, we all do that, but it was not aligning with my beliefs and my values. And now, with the years that is gifted to me after this, particularly after, you know, what Tony and I have been through, where you kind of mortality stares you in the face, I feel I've been given a second chance. And I really, really want to take a good look at, what do I believe in? What are my values? What's my higher purpose? Why have I been put in this world? And I want to do what aligns with that. Not everything will, I know, not everything will, not all of the time, but that's what I'm looking for. Then I think I will have that harmony or the peace or calm or whatever that we all look for.
I think a lot of us right now, myself included, we want to consciously, it's impossible to do this totally, but I want to consciously stay clear of as much of the toxicity as I can. I mean, you know, you can't do this totally. No one can do it totally in life. This is why we need systems like this that can sometimes guide us, and advice, etc., that can guide us, and ways of thinking and mapping out. Because we know we can never have total perfection, and steer clear of everything that's bad. But you can do a lot to help yourself to stay in alignment, as you say, to stay in alignment. And certainly I'm amazed at just how interesting, and I can tell talking to you, Rani, because I know you, I can tell how much more relaxed you are. I mean, you've been through a huge crisis, both of you having had COVID in the last, I mean, really up to last month, you were still in the thick of it. And you're
up to
still
2 weeks
recovering.
ago.
But you're relaxed and you're empowered. And so obviously it's It's the way for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the way for you.
And however difficult, you know, the sickness and treating Tony at home and everything, however difficult it was, I kept saying that I was exhausted, but I was not defeated.
Yes.
And I never for a moment doubted that we'll pull through. You know, I had that belief, and I kept telling Tony that, yeah, we are going to pull through. So it's again the inner state of mind. Whatever chaos is swirling around you, if somewhere inside you, you can find that sense of security or the certainty or whatever, it has to come from within. Excellence or whatever has to come from within. It can't come from outside. So we have to work on ourselves first. And NLP really, when I learn NLP, I learn it for myself first, not to teach others or to train others or, you know, to sell it or anything. I do it for myself, for my life, for my relationships, for my state of mind and my well-being. And then maybe I can share it with other people as well.
Well, Rani, I think that's a great note to end on. And just everybody at home, if you are confident within yourself, you will take people as you find them, but you'll also take topics, issues, philosophies as you find them. Don't be so quick to think of something as a cult or to listen to what somebody has said about something and dismiss it. Go and find out for yourself. Who knows? It might be the way for you. For some, it's Buddhism. For some, it's Christianity. For some, it might be NLP. For some, it's pan-spirituality of a different sort. Be confident enough in yourself to go and find out what works for you, because you are trying to harness and to find alignment, as Rani says. For yourself, it's got to be for yourself first.
Absolutely.
So don't be afraid.
Absolutely.
Fear is the worst thing. It does you more damage. So have a look, see if it's for you. It may not be, it may be. So everybody, listen, thank you so much. We're going to have another episode of Business Block on Monday with the Women's Inspire Network, who are powering that particular show. And on Thursdays, as you know, it's local, national and international business. Rani, you want to say something extra?
Just one, I'm so sorry, very, very quickly, one thing. One of the things that we learn is it's okay not to be okay. So I just want, you know, any friends listening to think that, you know, when we say we are brave or we're courageous or whatever, it doesn't mean you're not afraid. It doesn't mean you don't have fears, because just listen to Brené Brown's TED Talk, and she explains it better than I could, that courage is not the absence of fear. I mean, if you have no fear, then where is this? What's the point of, you know, how is there courage? So it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have doubts. It's okay to fall on your face. We all do that all the time. And it's okay to be not okay. And then we get better and better and better as we go. Sorry, I just thought I'll mention that.
No, I'm completely on board with that. I totally agree. I'm actually very relieved to hear that is part of the NLP philosophy. I wouldn't have known that if we hadn't had this discussion today. So I'm learning all kinds of new things, and I'm delighted that you agreed to come on from Bangalore in India. Rani Innes, thank you so much for joining us on Business Block.
Thank you for having me, Miriam. Pleasure.
Look forward to seeing you all next week, folks. Bye-bye.